Good morning, gardeners. To Friday, May 12th. Don't worry, this show has nothing to do with actual gardening, so don't run away if you're like me and can't grow green things. I'm speaking of gardening metaphorically. We're planting the seeds for a better day. We're starting our day by getting in the right mindset to cultivate a better life for ourselves, better communities, and a better world. Today is International Nurses Day, which is celebrated on the anniversary of Florence Nightingale's birth. Florence Nightingale became an essential figure in nursing in the 1950s during the Crimean War. Stationed at a hospital where she headed a group of nurses who cared for injured British soldiers, Nightingale greatly improved hospital conditions by imposing strict standards of care and ensuring the wards were kept clean and well stocked with food and medical supplies. This experience would later lead her to campaign for reform in healthcare and nursing. Today is set aside to honor and note the many contributions nurses make to society. Nurses care for our loved ones at some of the most challenging times of their lives. If you've been listening every day, you know that I myself recently experienced a scary situation that was made exponentially better by the care of competent nurses. If you have a nurse in your life, today is a good day for a gesture of appreciation, and if you are a nurse, from us here at Good Morning Gardeners, thank you so much for the work that you do. So I had another slow morning today, and the reason is because I think I have been fighting off COVID-19. This is related to our hospital scare a couple days ago, or maybe a few days ago now. And it's really hard for me sometimes to give myself permission to take it easy, snooze some things on the old to-do list and, maybe even skip a workout or sleep in half an hour or something like that. But these are all things that I have been doing for the past several days because I have been teaching myself to listen to my body. Now, this topic doesn't really necessarily follow into what I'm going to speak with you about in this episode, but, listening to your body is something that comes intuitively, I think, to most people. I don't think it comes intuitively to me, either that or I had this ability deprogrammed from my brain at a very young age. So to me, being able to notice that I am a little bit tired is it's a victory. It's a small victory because in the past, I would not notice that I was tired until I couldn't stand up anymore and I just had to lie down and go to sleep. And it's actually, a similar thing with hunger. If you know anything at all about like intuitive eating, which I'm also working on right now, being able to notice when you are a little bit hungry is different from waiting to eat until you're absolutely ravenous and you have to have something immediately, or else, you might pass out or something. Those things are both things that I am still working on, but I've made a lot of progress on. And because of my progress in noticing my energy levels, I have been taking it easy. So I had I'm having another slow morning, but I am still, gonna get on here and chat with you guys because for me, this morning, Good Morning Gardeners thing has become like a morning journaling of sorts, and I hope it's helping you to gather your thoughts, but it really helps me to gather my thoughts and get into the mindset that I want to be in for the day as well. So our feel-good moment for the day is that it is very seldom required that you make a big series of drastic changes in order to improve your life. Your best life may very well be just a couple of tweaks away. And I think it's common that, especially in the springtime, the summertime, like when it's warming up, it's very common to get like this burst of motivation. It's like spring cleaning season and you want to like reinvent your life and, completely overhaul all of your systems and the way that you live, your routines, and like start fresh, you know? It's like we also do this in January, some of us, like New Year, New Me. Well, in the spring, I think, you know, it's pretty common to get the feeling to, you know, do that, like new season, new me. But yeah, you know, if you've been sticking with me for a while, you've heard me mention this before, but large overhauls and drastic changes, they just aren't sustainable. And they lead to burnout, as I am intimately familiar with. And it's much more sustainable to just make small changes over time. And if something is sustainable, you know, it's actually going to be a lot more effective too, because a large change sustained for a short amount of time overall has much less impact than a small change sustained, for example, for decades. You know, think about it's similar to investing money, right? If you can create a habit of just investing or saving a small amount of money over a really long period of time, that is going to be a lot more, you're going to end up with a lot more money than if you just, you know, invested as much as you can or saved as much as you possibly could and ate like a ramen for like 1 year. I hope that that makes sense. But I'm going to read to you today about gradualness, which is how Maxwell Maltz refers to this idea in Psychocybernetics. He says, gradualness is the secret. Weightlifters start with weights they can lift and gradually increase the weights over a period of time. Good fight managers start a boxer off with easy opponents and gradually pit him against more experienced fighters. We can apply the same general principles in almost any field of endeavor. The principle is merely to start with an opponent over which you can succeed and gradually take on more and more difficult tasks. Pavlov, on his deathbed, was asked to give one last bit of advice to his students on how to succeed. His answer was passion and gradualness. Even in those areas where we have already developed a high degree of skill, it sometimes helps to drop back, lower our sights a bit, and practice with a feeling of ease. This is especially true when one reaches a sticking point in progress, where effort for additional progress is unavailing. Continually straining to go beyond the sticking point is likely to develop undesirable feeling habits of strain, difficulty, and effort. Under such conditions, weightlifters reduce the amount of weight on the bar and practice easy lifting for a while. And the idea is that, you know, you can take that weightlifting metaphor to your life and, you know, start small. If you're struggling with something, scale it back, you know, be patient, wait, and just remember that, you know, patience is the key, and the true amount of progress is only going to be seen after a long, long, long period of time. For our learning moment today, we are diving back into deep work to read about why optimizing our routines can be so powerful. Now, I've already spoken a little bit about, you know, how these things compound over time and how, you know, if you stick with it for a long time, then you're going to see big results. But in deep work, we are going to tackle this topic from a slightly different angle. So Cal Newport in Deep Work says, unfortunately, when it comes to replacing distraction with focus, matters are not simple. To understand why this is true, let's take a closer look at one of the main obstacles to going deep, the urge to turn your attention toward something more superficial. Most people recognize that this urge can complicate efforts to concentrate on hard things, but most underestimate its regularity and strength. Consider a 2012 study led by psychologists Wilhelm Hoffman and Roy Baumeister that outfitted 205 adults with beepers that activated at randomly selected times. When the beeper sounded, the subject was asked to pause for a moment to reflect on desires that he or she was currently feeling or had felt in the last 30 minutes, and then answer a set of questions about these desires. After a week, the researchers had gathered more than 7,500 samples. Here's the short version of what they found. People fight desires all day long. As Baumeister summarized in his subsequent book, Willpower, desire turned out to be the norm, not the exception. The 5 most common desires these subjects fought include, not surprisingly, eating, sleeping, and sex. But the top 5 list also included desires for taking a break from hard work, checking email and social networking sites, surfing the web, listening to music, or watching television. The lure of the internet and television proved especially strong. The subjects succeeded in resisting these particularly addictive distractions only around half of the time. These results are bad news for anybody who wants to practice deep work, because they tell us that you can expect to be bombarded with the desire to do anything but work deeply throughout the day. And if you're like the German subjects from the Hoffman and Baumeister study, these competing desires will often win out. You might respond at this point that you will succeed where these subjects failed, because you understand the importance of depth and will therefore be more rigorous in your will to remain concentrated. This is a noble sentiment, but the decades of research that preceded this study underscore its futility. A now voluminous line of inquiry, initiated in a series of pioneering papers also written by Roy Baumeister, has established the following important truth about willpower. You have a finite amount of willpower that becomes depleted as you use it. Your will, in other words, is not a manifestation of your character that you deploy without limit. It's instead like a muscle that gets tired. This is why the subjects in Hoffman and Baumeister study had such a hard time fighting desires. Over time, these distractions drained their finite pool of willpower until they could no longer resist. The same will happen to you, regardless of your intentions, unless, that is, you're smart about your habits. This brings me to the motivating idea behind the strategies that follow. The key to developing a deep work habit is to move beyond good intentions and add routines and rituals to your working life designed to minimize the amount of your limited willpower necessary to transition into and maintain a state of unbroken concentration. If you suddenly decide, for example, in the middle of a distracted afternoon spent web browsing, to switch your attention to a cognitively demanding task, you'll draw heavily from your finite willpower to wrest your attention away from the online shininess. Such attempts will therefore frequently fail. On the other hand, if you deployed smart routines and rituals, perhaps a set time and quiet location used for your deep tasks each afternoon, you'd require much less willpower to start and keep going. In the long run, you'd therefore succeed with these deep efforts far more often. So, for today's focus moment, I want you to think about the ways in which you are using your willpower. Personally, I have used a ton of willpower in the past for restrictive dieting and intense exercise. Now, while a healthy diet and exercise are both beneficial, the extreme lengths that I was going to took so much willpower, I had almost nothing left for anything else in my life. I have also used a lot of willpower on forcing myself to engage in social activities I didn't want to, exerting a huge amount of effort for hours to remain engaged and friendly with people who had nothing in common with me, and these events were so draining that I would be depleted for days. Of course, this morning I would like you to, if you can, try to find a very small way that you are spending your willpower. Especially, or particularly in a way that you really don't need to. Maybe it takes willpower to get out of bed in the morning, but if you can simply make this action obligatory by moving your alarm device out of reach from your bed. Now, there are tons of examples about this, and if you read Atomic Habits by James Clear, he gives some really good ones. I'm going to leave it at that for today, but I want you to briefly brainstorm a small shift you can make in your life to reduce the amount of willpower that you expend. We want to guard our willpower like the precious resource that it is, and save it up so we have it available when we really need it. And you can begin to save up more and more over time as you make gradual, sustainable changes to your routines. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I will speak with you again tomorrow.